Përshëndetje and welcome to Inside Albania with me, Alice Taylor. Last week, I visited London, the first time I went back home for 11 years. I met up with some old friends of mine and I heard their very interesting story. We talked about ballet, dance, music, Albanian tradition and culture, and building cultural bridges in the United Kingdom. I'm also joined in the studio by Jonas Kepi, a United Nations Youth Advisor, and we are talking about the upcoming 2025 elections, youth engagement, or rather the lack of youth engagement, and brain drain. Come with me. Welcome to Ickenham in London. I've come all the way from Tirana to the glorious city of London to speak to two people who I've been friends with for a very long time. Tomorr and Mariela Chingo. They are two Albanians living in London for longer than I lived in the UK, and their contribution to culture, music and art, both in Albania and the UK, has been immense. I've come to visit them at their place of work today to find out more about what they've been up to. Can you introduce yourselves and explain to us what are we doing in almost sunny London today?
Me first? Okay, so I am Mariela Chingo. By profession, I am a musician. I play the piano, classically trained in Albania, but then did my A-levels and my university in London. So I came here as a student and then stayed.
Yeah.
And you?
My name is Tomorr. By profession, I'm a choreographer. So you can see two artists just got together.
Yes.
I studied in Albania classical ballet from very early age. Did the university, got a degree in choreography at the Albanian University. Then I became the first choreographer of the Albanian National Ballet. Moved to Spain, lived there for 3 years, and came to UK to do a master in choreography and theatre direction. And here we are, both together. Here we run a music academy. We've got about 800 students every week that we train piano, guitar.
800 every
yes.
week? Wow, you guys are busy.
No, not only us. Yeah.
We have staff to help us, honestly.
Yeah, we have quite a few staff.
I think it's fair to say that the base of the success has been that we had the foundations in Albania, which was really rigorous training, a lot of instilling the right type of discipline and expectations, just the right amount. But then because we did our university degrees here, you went to Laban, I went to the London College, then we got the other aspect, which is opening up and getting the other perspective of, learning from other performances, other things. And we tried to combine the two together here. This is what we're trying to do. So we're trying to take the best of that culture and the best of this culture and marry them together. And so far,
it works. It does work.
You said you moved to Spain. Can you elaborate on that slightly, please?
All right,
Because this is such an interesting part of the story for people who don't know you.
Well, it was 1991. Albania was changing. So on a tour of Spain with the Albanian National Ballet, for a month, we just toured all of Spain. And on the last day of the tour, with $110 in my pockets, with a German dictionary, I left through the back door of the hotel, claimed political asylum in Spain. And I was an asylum seeker for only 7 days.
Wow.
Because I went to a dance company in Murcia, South Spain, and when they saw that I could dance, in a way, art and dance saved my life. They just said to me, here you are, you can get a work permit. So I lived in Spain for 3 years, danced for the Classical Ballet of Madrid, and I wanted to come to UK to do a master's in choreography and dance. So I moved to UK, came here as a student, got a few contracts, worked for English National Opera, and everything is history in that time.
You met both in the UK, your paths crossed by accident. Was there a bit of fate intertwined there, perhaps?
I think there's a little bit of fate. So it was Mother Teresa that brought us together. I met her as a child because I used to go to the I used to go to the Catholic Church in Korça, which is where I'm from. And Mother Teresa came a few times because I opened a house there in the church to help the community, which is also how I learned my English, really. And then after I'd moved here and they were canonizing her, Father Gary, which is the priest Mother Teresa brought to Albania, was serving the Albanian community here. So he calls me saying, can you come and do a concert because they're going to make Mother into a saint? And I said, of course I'm going to come and play for Mother Teresa.
Wow.
So I went because I'd met her personally, because I was a Christian, and Tomorr came because he's patriotic.
A patriotic Albanian.
Doesn't know, right? So we met in this concert, and I was playing, I think, some Albanian music as part of the concert, and you were drawn to the music, and you were thinking, oh, who's playing that? Who's playing that? And it happened to be me.
Ding, and then that was it.
Flower.
Okay, so this is the entrance to the theatre where we have been based for the last 16 years. It's part of the Hinenden Council, where we hire studios, and apart from working from the 2 studios in the theatre, we go to primary schools in the area, and we send our music teachers to teach children various instruments, from piano to violin to singing and all of the other things in between.
As young as 4 years old.
As long as 4 years old?
Yes.
That's amazing. Can we go have a look inside?
Yes, let's go inside.
Yes, we do teach Albanian children as well as other nationalities. One of the added bonuses for the Albanian children that they really like is, if they get me, then they like having their lessons in Albania. So they're kind of practicing the Albanian as well as their music. But our philosophy, generally speaking, is that it's not about learning the instruments. So if you think that we're teaching you how to play the piano or how to play the violin, you are wrong. We believe very much that we are e quajmë në shqip skalitje karakteri, so sculpting children's character. So we see it very much as a character building thing, which is why we like having them as young as 4, because we're teaching them how to plan, how to be disciplined, how to be honest, how to self-regulate, but also how to channel their creativity.
Mariela comes from the music industry, and I come from the performing arts, from the stage industry. We also feel that this is something that we can give to the community. Hence, for the last practically 30 years, we've been involved with all of the Albanian groups in the UK. Practically what we do, we work directly with young people and different groups by teaching them dance, acting, singing and music. And we are very much engaged also. We lead the British Albanian Culture and Arts Association. It's a non-for-profit organization, founded in 2002. We invite a lot of prominent artists as well as everyone else who have got an interest in our culture, tradition, language, and anything in between. We organize every 2 weeks one event, for example, film screening, where we bring Albanian old and young and new films, and then we promote the cultural bridging mentality between both nations, Great Britain and Albania, or better said, Albanian speaking land, because we are not really conditioned just for Albania. Also, we organize performances. We organize quality performances, from classical music to classical ballet, contemporary dance, and classical concerts. So everything and anything in between. Musicians. For example, recently we invited someone from America, an Albanian artist. They joined Irish musicians with Japanese music, and also, of course, Mariela playing classical music as well. So this is something that the philosophy of the British Albanian Culture and Arts Association is to build cultural bridges.
And we find Albanian music to be quite well received here, because whilst it's in Europe, it's located in Europe, we have a lot of 7/8 rhythms, a lot of sort of unpredictable. It's not like your simple 1 2 3 1 2 3 that you get in Western music. So whenever I play that alongside my repertoire, I find that people will come back and say, "Oh, tell us more about it. Tell us more." And I also like to talk. You probably can't tell, but but I also like to talk and explain about the music, about the composer, which region does it come from. And it's such a nice way of finding out about history and culture by meeting people and seeing things that we might have in common, as opposed to things that are so different.
It's funny what you say about Albanian music. I can, for the most part, hear something and then play it. But with Albanian music, the rhythm, the scales, the way the notes are arranged was completely alien to my ears. So I would listen to some Albanian music and I wouldn't be able to play it after one or two listens like I would with something maybe more Western European or English. It's definitely taken me a while to recognise or to be able to retain sort of Albanian music in my brain. I found that, I wasn't expecting that.
It's more felt than it is logical. So we have rules, but rules are also meant to be broken at times. So if you try to think of it that way, I think it will be more helpful. So we operate in modes as opposed to major or minor scales. I know I'm getting really technical now, but we kind of operate more in the modes. And usually it's a very simple melody, and if it's sung, then the words will be important. So therefore the words will take priority, not keeping the structure of 3 or 4 in a bar, which is what we're used to here. And you'll also find if you go in the north of Albania, the music will be, you know, more diverse. So you'll get more like the 7/8 rhythms, kind of like the nature. So you get the more mountains. And then when you go, if you have music from the south, that's more like the Western, what you're used to, that we have more fields and more open spaces, and it's reflected in the dances. I mean, Tomorr knows more about it, but it's so true. So it comes from the language, and it's influenced, I think, very much by nature and by language. And that will reflect itself in the music.
To say that over the last couple of years, the Albanian has had some issues with how they've been portrayed in the media in the UK, which has been completely wrong. It's been terrible. This hatred has been whipped up very unjustly, and it's often made me feel ashamed to be British many, many times. And I mean, this is the first time I've been in the UK for 11 years, the first time I've set foot here. But I want to know from you two, I think you've lived here longer than I ever did. What is it like being Albanian here? Is it ever an issue for you? And during this period, particularly in 2022-23, when things were quite tense, was it difficult? How did you overcome it? And talk a bit more about these building cultural bridges.
I think it is difficult. For me personally, because I was already established here, already settled in a community, and people around us knew us, for me as an adult, it was easier. Also being armed with art, with music, doing concerts, being prominent in a way, it was really not easy. I don't want to say easy, but it did make me feel that at least I have a little bit of a voice. I can stand up in a concert of mine and play Albanian music and talk and say, yes, I'm here to take over your country, and make a joke about that. And then, no, really, I'm not here to talk about your country. But it meant I could open a conversation with people. But what was really difficult, having to see our children deal with that, because they're not as old as we are. They don't have all the information. They don't have all the facts at their fingertips. And when they're kids, when their friends will say, oh, you're Albanian, ha, 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 drugs, human trafficking, that really hurt. That really, really hurt. And our kids saying, well, how do we respond to that? So, yeah, from that perspective, it was really, really difficult, because when it comes from the top, like when you have government officials, you know, openly picking on a country, not a person, but an entire country, then this is wrong. Then this is a problem. It's a big problem. And the only way that I could think, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, was
through our mission to really build cultural bridges. That was the best antidote, as we could say it, because when you have the interior minister in the UK using a rhetoric by saying, I'm here with a group of police officers to get all Albanians out. So this sort of rhetoric really goes into everybody else in the country, whilst we as community,
you become the enemy.
In a way, without, you know, and as we told you our story, we came here as everybody else in the right legal way. Yes, of course, other people came in different things with a different agenda, but there are a tiny minority. You could not really generalize a whole community. So what was left for us to do? What we did best, what we can do best. We put our head down, we obey to the law of the land, and we went with what we have in common instead of what divides us, as politics did. So what we have in common, we have passion for life, we are honorable and honest people, we work hard, and above all, we got culture. So that's what we did with our community. We engaged more and more people, as well as Mariela just said before, at every concert that Mariela does with classical orchestra, so small or big, she always plays an Albanian music, and she also comments how proud she is to be Albanian and how this enriches people's life by us being here, by obeying as everybody else, and it shouldn't be where we come from.
Same thing with the children. We found the best thing is to arm them with as much information as possible. So not to go out and fight, but to say, so we say to them, well, encourage your friends to ask questions. Because if they're asking questions, then you can have open conversations. And then, like Tom said, then you can find the things that unite you, the things that you have in common, and the tiny little differences that you will actually enjoy. That's right. Because a lot of the kids were coming, not only our children, but the children that we teach, the children from the community, saying, what do we do? What do we do when they're saying this to us? And he was like, because the natural instinct, especially for the little boys, was to maybe to fight back, because it's a natural thing.
So many stories of children coming home from school saying, my friends don't want to play with me anymore. Why are they saying that we're criminals? You know, it's horrible. So well done. Like I said, I think you have contributed to culture and youth more than many other British people. It's true, you have. You've lived here longer than me. The work that you do is amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
She's taken the rings off.
And the watch. Yes, because this is now we're in business.
It's a serious piece of music when the rings and the watch come off.
Correct. This is Chopin, so we have to be like this for Chopin.
Welcome to Inside Albania. It's a pleasure to have you in the studio.
Thank you for the invitation.
Right, let's start at the beginning. So, when did you decide that you wanted to be a diplomat and this path along diplomacy, politics, whatever you want to call it, was the right path for you?
Well, I started 4 years ago. I was a simple volunteer in Albania and Tirana. And I saw that there are many opportunities abroad which young people can engage in. And I saw, well, I should do that. It's a fun opportunity. And why not travel the world and engage with different bright minds across Europe and the globe. So yeah, I thought it's a great opportunity to join it.
But you say 4 years ago, what did you want to be when you were young? What was your dream when you were young?
When I was young, I wanted to be in the army because of my father. He was a colonel in the army. Yeah, he was in Afghanistan actually.
Wow,
Yeah,
he's
so-
retired now?
Yeah, he's retired now, and I wanted to be in the army actually. So yeah, from the army, then my aunt wanted me to be a medic.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of changes. Quietly.
So how did you go from the dreams of being in the army to a dream of being in diplomacy? Because they're very different approaches to resolving
Yes.
conflict, aren't they?
There's a very funny phrase a long time ago. It's hard being a diplomat and a soldier in the same time. So I believe being a diplomat and also engaging with politics is much better than being in the army. You know, you have to wake up in 5 a.m. in the morning, do training, obstacles. But I prefer my life now as a youth ambassador for different organizations in institutions. Last week, I was at the UN Youth World Food Forum in Rome, in FAO, which was a big summit with different world leaders.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I like, representing Albania and its interests across the globe. And that's my daily. I have a long schedule, a long weekend, and I love doing my work, especially knowing other people in Europe.
And those in your family who wanted you to be a medic or maybe follow the same career path as your father, have they come around to this idea of you being a diplomat now, or following politics?
They have been thankful.
Yeah.
Yes, they have been they are proud of me, especially my parents, which both have motivated me to become this part of my life. So I think it's very essential that every young individual, especially in Albania and in the Western Balkans, should try to activism and should try to join events, not just in Europe, but also in America, North America or South America, because it's a very nice thing engaging with events, youth events, and talking about how we can make the better of ourselves. So it's also an important thing.
It's probably less dangerous than being in the army as well. I was going to say politics is less dangerous than being in the army, but judging by the events of the last few weeks, being a politician in Albania is not easy sailing either.
Yeah, it's not a very easy say, as we have seen.
I would say they maybe bring it on themselves. But I wanted to ask, let's start talking about politics. We'll come back to your route, your path in a moment, but we have general elections in a few months. And as I mentioned, in the last couple of weeks, the opposition has pretty much disappeared. One is on house arrest, the other is in 313 prison. Luzin Basho is probably either very happy or looking over his shoulder, wondering if he's next. You know, the space for democracy and options in the elections, which I believe are scheduled for April, is getting smaller and smaller. There are other political movements in the country, but they don't have that cult of personality behind them. They don't have that sort of legacy of family voting behind them. What do you think of this situation? You know, 6 months before the polls and 2 opposition leaders behind bars, essentially. What does this mean for Albanian democracy?
For Albanian democracy, it means lots of things. Everyone has looked at now at their backs because they're all scared of what's happening.
Yeah.
But democracy is the cornerstone of our society, especially in Albania. Many young people, especially in the last elections, 13.5% of people, young people, voted, which is it's the lowest number in Europe actually right now, and in the Balkans. And young people have to be motivated to vote and to watch the parties. So it's very important that the parties and the politicians need to include young people in the elections, especially in general elections. Because if if the young people don't vote, who will vote for them? Their fate will be on the hands of others.
But all these parties are saying, oh, you know, we're going to do this for youth, we're going to do this for youth. You know, they have their pictures with youth and they're all at it. But why are they still not voting for them? Why are young people not interested?
The young people have a lack of motivation. They are used to the traditional political system in Albania, which they say, oh, our vote will not do this, our vote will go to the bin, to the trash. So young people have this mentality of, especially with their parents, it's a generational thing, which they do not care about the political system anymore because they know that their vote is not gonna change anything because they have seen the last elections. And I think to ensure this, to make young people vote more, I think it's a good idea for the government and the parties to give them more awareness. Young people are not very aware. So the government needs to engage the youth, not just in the teenage years. They need to change the civic education in Albania by learning them how important your vote is and how important the democratic system is and why you should vote. So I think this should be learned at a very young age. It should not be learned in the teenage years. So yeah.
I think some of them do have this information. I think we underestimate them slightly. But I mean, if I was an 18-year-old Albanian and I looked at the current crop of politicians who are all, I think, over 50, in various stages of criminal prosecution, I don't know who, I don't see myself reflected in any of them, which I would find really disheartening. You know, I don't see a role model for myself. I don't see someone who knows what it's like to be my age or knows what struggles I'm facing. I think this is a problem as well. I think people have the information. A lot of them do, but they don't see an option. Like who can they relate to amongst this crop of politicians? Do you think we can see any emergence of another option before the next elections?
Young people need role models.
Yeah.
It's a very important thing. Role models cannot be used as influencers or celebrities. We need the best role models for youth is the youth itself. Others, your friends, your cousins, they can make the difference. When young people come together, they change everything. So the young people need to have role models by themselves. I see myself as a good example of that role model, even others outside serving as youth ambassadors across the world. So I believe the perfect role model is your family culture, which you have presided to you, and of course the other youngsters who are actually engaging more. So I believe the perfect role model should not be a politician or somebody that is in a party and using propaganda. I'm not just in Albania, but also in the West. I believe the perfect role model should be the youth itself, and that's the key important.
We have people looking up to Big Brother and
that's
gangster rappers, you know, talking about cocaine and cars, and then we have this crop of aging politicians. No offense if any of them are watching. You know, this is what I mean. It's not just the role models we have in society, the role models like you, other people I know who are doing amazing things. Fiori Hodjai, she's been on my show a couple of times. She's amazing. You know, these are the role models, but they're being drowned out by these voices of sort of mass celebrity and dumbed down television. And it's really hard for people like yourself, like Fiori, like others, to make their voices heard in this society. This is what I worry about, because, you know, you can be the best role model possible, but how to make your voice heard more?
Well, the voice should be heard by the government itself. So it's not about the youth. Actually, John F. Kennedy has a very nice phrase, actually. Ask not what you can do for your country, but you can do for your country itself. So it's not about the youth giving opinions or giving critics to the government, but it's about what the youth can do itself without the help of others. And that's that's what I told you, the key point, because many young people feel disconnected. They are introduced to the traditional political system, and they are not very, let's say, caring about it. So how to make them care? It also depends on the education and awareness. That's the main point in Albania. Giving awareness to the political system is a very high-end thing. As I told you before, the civic education and to give a good campaign for the youth, and why social media is a very great propaganda machine. You can use it to make a lot of youth people to vote. So why not use every strategy in the book to make them vote? So why you need their votes? You have to use every strategy in the book to give them the rights and to give them the information they need and why they should vote. Especially the party programs should be all considered. As I have actually done a speech about this in the KGZ with the OSCE event, actually. And we have come with the conclusion that politicians should talk with the youth. They should have roundtables, coffee meetings with the youth to hear their opinions.
Away from cameras and social media posts, and because I see these things happening, but what really comes out of it? They sit there, they talk, the youth say their bit, the minister goes on to their next, you know, they have to do it away from the cameras.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. Not just the Albanian ministers, every minister uses a strategy to do not come to the camera and just, they have scripts for the young people and just say, oh yeah, say this, say this. But they should have really constructive talks. It should be one minister with 30 young people in a room and just being there together with cameras and expressing their opinion about how this and how we can make the better of Albania. So I think it's very important that politicians and our government should work together to give the youth opportunities. That's the main thing, to give them the opportunities that the other young people have left the country.
But this is something as well. I think a lot of this youth disengagement from politics and from voting, and I hope we're wrong, but I think we'll see even less youth voting in the next election, is because they have the information, you know, they know. However, they want to leave the country. They want to go to Germany. They want to go to UK. Why am I going to bother voting? I'm counting the days until I can leave. You know, they are disengaged with their culture, with their roots, with their society, with their identity. They are following what they're seeing on social media. They want this European dream, you know, that they see, and they don't want to engage with politics because why do I? I don't want to live in Albania. I can't wait to leave. I hate it here. I gave a talk about my book recently. And I wrote 250 amazing things that I have experienced in Albania. Yeah. And this girl came up to me afterwards. She was Albanian. She was about 17. And she said, but how did you find 250 things? I don't think I could even find 25. And I was like, my dear, I have a list of over 1,000. And she was like, but how? There's not that many good things here. You know, this is what people, this generation, they think. You know, how do you combat that deep, I don't want to use the word hatred, but disappointment, detachment from their country and the willingness to leave, because that is impacting their vote as well.
Yeah. Brain drain is a serious problem in Albania, especially in the Western Balkans. Many young people, talented young people, leave Albania for better opportunities and mainly for economic reasons in Albania. And I believe the government is trying to do something, and it will eventually fix the problem itself by giving the youth opportunities and giving them the main thing of helping the economy, especially the students in Tirana. Every student in Albania comes to Tirana to study.
Yeah.
So they need to have better opportunities than the ones who live here. So I think there needs to be a brief introduction, a brief research on how the government can achieve this. In my opinion, they can help by giving scholarships. They can help by giving the economic freedom to them, to the students in a very early age, so they cannot be economic independent by their parents. So that's a very, I know many young people who are students here, who have come to different regions, to different cities like Fieri, Shkodra, and they have come here to study, and they are working 2 jobs, 3 jobs a day. So
Studying.
And studying at the same time, and paying rent, which is something globally done.
Yes.
But other governments are actually helping the students. They have their own monetary fund for the students.
We have loans.
Yeah, they have student loans, but in Albania, I believe by time, I'm very sure of is that it will come by itself. So I believe the government should work more on the students' life aspect and the mainly youth life in Albania, and why they should be considered more in the political system.
What about the quality of the education as well? Do you think that needs a bit of helping along?
Of course. It's not about just about, every country needs an improvement of its education. It's a generational thing. My parents used to learn this, they used to do this, but every generational young people have its own criteria or its priority. You have youngsters of 11-year-olds with their phones. They are very good at technology, especially in Albania. English technology in IT is booming.
Yeah.
It's a very good thing. But I believe the education system, not just the education system, Albania has a lot of problems. Even the government is saying we have a lot of problems. They are not.
I'd hate to be the Prime Minister. Just imagine waking up every morning and seeing your to-do list. Oh my God, where do I?
I mean, every government has its own plan. I believe Albania has to be more pragmatic. Even we are joining soon the European Union, if we are joining it soon.
Hopefully.
I can give you a backstory on this. I know many talented young people going to Europe, and they are shining. They are becoming even famous, like Mira Murati in America with ChatGPT and OpenAI. We as a culture have this thing of shining abroad and being the best. Absolutely. That's in our genes as Albanians. And if these young, talented Albanians wouldn't leave the country, imagine if they would come back here, which some of them do, and some of them don't, but the majority, they don't. And I believe if they come back here and if the youth work together, especially young, bright minds, when young, bright minds work together, they make the best out of it. And that's the main thing of the government, giving back the opportunities of the youth living abroad.
We have seen success. We have seen youth-led movements having some impact in Albania. We've seen the recent-ish protests about the law to do with medical students. We saw the student protests. I can't remember what year it was. You know, it made international news. Things changed then. So the youth do have the power when they mobilize. When they mobilize, but it seems that it's getting harder and harder to mobilize people. I guess I mean, I know a lot of the activists involved in that student movement a few years ago, and they've all left the country.
That's the most successful protest we ever had.
Yeah, they've got, most of them have gone, a lot have gone.
You want to know the reason behind that? That's because of the lack of motivation. And that's the lack of trusting the political system. They have given up. And they have the right to give up because there needs to be change. And there will be change in some time in the future. I assure you that. If we, me personally and others, work and bring a good government to the youth of this country, I believe there will be a change soon enough. But this needs time.
Could it be a youth revolution?
Yeah, a youth revolution. A coup d'etat. It doesn't work well here. A coup d'etat only worked once in Albania in the 90s when the boost of Georgia fell. Yeah, that's the perfect cue of Albania back in the time. But yeah, I believe there will be time. There will be time. So there is solutions and issues in Albania which are not always about the youth. There's about the medical system. There's about the civic education. The rights of this country and the rules. I believe you have seen the parliament. It's always on fire. It's always on. The lawmakers. The lawmakers are not actually giving much attention. They're giving much attention to the causes of their problems.
Yeah, I had a guest on here a while ago when they set fire to Parliament a few months ago, and he said he's foreign. His wife's Albanian, and he has a business that he runs mainly with British clients, but he runs it from here remotely, like many of us work remotely. And he said, I had clients calling me up, asking me whether it was safe for them to continue working with me from Albania because what they'd seen on TV. I believe I am a bit anarchistic in some ways. I organized my first protest at the age of 11. I made everyone in the schools sit in the playground when the US invaded Iraq because we were protesting against that. So I have a bit of this in me, But I think that there are certain actions which do more bad than good, such as damaging the international reputation, setting fire to Parliament, it was probably not the smartest thing to do in my view. And if I'm thinking that, I am not a youth, but imagine a young person seeing that and going, Jesus, is this what I have to to deal with? This is embarrassing.
The lack of motivation has increased a lot, especially the youth seeing this, especially in its own parliament. The parliament should be the only institution which should be quiet and making decisions. They are just fighting along.
It's the only place you have.
It is the only place. The parliament is the parliament of the people. The people are watching it, and they are seeing what the opposition and the majority of the political parties are doing. And I think it's not time to just burn the building down because of a cause or burn the building down. I believe that both parties should work together. They should work together because it's time for them to make Albania as it was, and it's better. I believe it's time to make Albania the best version of itself by helping the youth and engaging them more.
You're right about the lack of motivation. I travel around Albania a lot into all the deep, dark corners of the country, and I hear youth say, there's no opportunities here. There are so many opportunities here. There are so many. And even there are so many, but you need the push, the motivation, the drive, the vision to do it. But even, things like, I was in Tripoli recently, and there's a center there where they have trained people to work in marketing. It's not call center work. They're doing actual social media marketing, designing business plans for social media, posting plans and everything. And they're working with a company in Ireland. So they're being paid an Irish salary, but they're working online from Tripoli. This concept of remote work, you said yourself, they're great with technology. They all speak English. Do you know how many remote jobs there are in the world where you can work from the comfort of Albania? And if you're earning 2,000 euros a month, 1,500 euros a month from Europe and bring it to Albania, this is amazing. But people don't see, they're like, no, I have to go to England. I have to go to England because England is a rich country and I'll get lots of money there. Yes, sure, but the rent is 2,000 euros a month. Then you have to pay your council tax. And people are unfriendly and it will cost you a fortune to just go out of the house, They're not seeing the opportunities, the potential, thinking out of the box as they should be. And this comes from being demotivated and deeply disappointed in the system.
It's also a point I was going to make, actually, but you brought it up. It's the lack of opportunities. In many young people are not aware of their opportunities. It's not about opportunities in Albania. They have a lot of opportunities. We know how to speak English perfectly. Everyone does.
Yes.
We know how to use technology, and we know how to use computers and telephones. You can make a lot of money from crypto, or you can make a lot of money from investments, or you can work remotely in other countries, and you can get a very good salary. I know many good examples of young people working remotely with a teleperformance, a call center, or anything. It's a student job. They need to make a living. So I believe
You have to start at the bottom.
you have to start at the bottom somewhere. So every opportunity you need to assure them. It's the main thing of this country.
I have 2 closing points for you.
Yes.
In 2 sentences, 1 sentence for each thing I'm going to ask you. What is your call to action for the youth ahead of the next elections? What is your call to action for the political leaders? I mean, I assume they have TV in prison, so they may hear you. What is your call to action for the youth and for the politicians before next year's election? 1 sentence for each.
Don't leave your fate on the hands of others. That's, I believe, 1 sentence is enough. Don't leave your fate in the hands of others.
Is that to both of them?
That's, I believe, it's proper. Don't leave your fate to the hands of others.
Yeah.
Because why leave your vote when you can change something? Because one vote can make a difference. I assure you that. One vote.
Look what happened in Moldova recently. They had the referendum on EU membership, and the vote was like 50.3 yes, and the rest was, I mean, it's down to a few votes at the end of the day. Every single vote counts.
Every young people is the 1% of each vote. And that 1%, if you're not using correctly, it can affect your personal life with education and the economic status. So if the young people don't vote, it's bad for us, it's a bad image for Albania, it's a bad image for our culture and our nation. So I believe it's very important for the young people to vote and not leave their vote to the hands of others, and use that vote because it's their right, it's their human right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
That's all for this week. You can catch Inside Albania on Euronews Albania every Saturday, on our YouTube channel on demand, and across all major podcasting platforms. Until next week, Mira Pavshim.